He's editor-in-chief of Breitbart News and a New York Times best-selling author. And on this podcast, he brings deep research, prescient analysis, and world-class guests. He's Alex Marlow, and this is The Alex Marlow Show.
Welcome into The Alex Marlow Show. You know why I say welcome in? Because it's highly irritating. We all agree on this all of a sudden. The Wall Street Journal has declared welcome in the two-word greeting that's taking over and driving shoppers nuts. I have been complaining about welcome in for 3 years, and I gotta tell you, sometimes you read articles in other media outlets and you feel jealous and you think, dang, I wish I wrote that one. This is one I wish I wrote. I don't understand it. It is the peak of laziness. It's fake warmth. There's no good retort to it. There's no, what are you supposed to say when someone says welcome into you? Okay, glad to be here. Thanks. I mean, there's no conversation that's going to take place. It is as if a robot or an AI came up with a greeting and then we all just adapted it. The in also as an editor is not necessary. And I understand that you're allowed to have poetry. So if things sound better, you are allowed to add words to a phrase. That is your right as a human being. But I have to say welcome and welcome in mean the same thing. One is just really annoying and affected, and one is normal. So I'm glad Wall Street Journal is throwing down, and I've made a decision. We must boycott any store that institutes welcome in. There's no other way to get rid of it. How else are we going to get rid of it? Are we in agreement here, people? Aloha at alexmarlow.com. Tell me why I'm right or why I'm wrong. But I'm not into it. I'm not into welcome in. All right, I promised I would do it. I read Original Sin, the #1 New York Times best-selling book now by Jake Tapper and Alex Thompson, who's a guy from Axios who has been popping up in interviews. And they sit next to each other, and Alex Thompson just looks like a deer in the headlights just every single time. It's kind of unbelievable. Someone who has more time in their hands, you can make a super cut of him sitting there looking very uncomfortable with everything that's going on. And I'll start with the positive stuff about the book, which I read cover to cover. First of all, I did read it, so you don't have to. So just to get that out of the way, it is not worth your time unless you have a morbid curiosity about this stuff. But I will try to give you my full assessment. But if I'm going to say something positive, it's sort of fun. It's pretty fictional, and it's almost all of it is going to be redundant for this audience, probably even more so than liberal audiences, because a lot of it is rehashing stuff that we discussed in conservative media, going back how long? A decade? But it's pretty well paced. So, Tapper in his spare time writes novels. So it's a decent, you move at a decent clip. I got through it in, I think 3 sittings, which was not, that's a kind thing to say about it. So look, I'm trying not to, I'm going to call it out, but it was decently written. It also takes itself very seriously, which is ballsy, because much of the book is completely absurd. And I will say that the marketing was brilliant. The fact that it's gotten so much attention, and Jake Tapper frames this thing as if it's Watergate, and it's not even a story at all. I mean, this is a total nothing burger. There's no major revelations within it at all. And he's framed it up as if it's Watergate. And then he even has this thing at the end where he says, this is not Watergate. This is totally different. Wink, wink, nod, nod. This is really Watergate is what he means. And the marketing, the Don King nature of it, I'm gonna have to hire him to hype up my next book, because the hype machine was, it seems pretty good. Or was it? John Nolte thinks it did not work. He's written a story for us at Breitbart News. CNN's primetime audience sinks to a pathetic 405,000 viewers during the last week, that's pretty much nothing. Like, I'm pretty sure if you aired cats playing with balls of yarn during that time on CNN, it would pull a higher rating than 400,000. I think more people would watch it than that. So it really is bad. People are not tuning in that network. And the book scans from Nielsen, which came out, had the book selling about 50,000 hardcovers. And I'll take this on right away, because I'll tell you, I'm going to come out with a book soon. I don't know if it's going to sell 50,000 copies the first week. That will be a lot. And so I don't want to be entirely dismissive, because that is a lot of books in a objective sense. But considering the 24/7 round-the-clock news cycle, I was thinking this thing was going to come in at 500,000, maybe 1 million books the first week. Literally that level was what I was thinking is how it would open. The Bob Woodward's books on Trump, complaining about Trump, can push over 1 million in pre-sales. I think John Bolton sold over 700,000 books complaining about Trump. The Anonymous guy sold hundreds of thousands of books. And that was another one that was probably pretty fictionalized and bogus, mostly a marketing machine. So it's just not a lot. I mean, that is just a routine Peter Schweitzer book will open at that level. A routine Mark Levin book will open way higher than that. And this had 24/7 obsessive media attention, and it's just not a huge number for that. But that said, it's a number one, and it is, it's a moneymaker, I'm sure. I don't know, actually. I don't know how much Tapper got paid. Maybe it's not a moneymaker yet. I don't know. So, but it's one of these things where you could make a case that it kind of bombed. You could make that case. That's not for me to make because it is a lot of books, but Nolte thinks it's a bomb, and he's very trustworthy on this. He doesn't have a dog in the fight the same way I do. But considering all the attention, not a ton. But yeah, that's about it. The book's not long in terms of the positive stuff. But the one other thing that might be interesting is there are these little Easter eggs that make you think maybe Tapper's in on the joke. Like he mentions that Joe Biden got last rites in the 1980s for his brain aneurysms when he was on the operating table. There was a 50% chance he could die from his brain aneurysms. And he kind of mentions it like it's no big deal. And you're reading it and you're kind of thinking, wait a minute. We're talking about his cognitive decline now, and you're mentioning he almost died from a brain surgery 40 years ago. Are we going to connect these dots here? Perhaps these are related, maybe. So that is a elephant in the room throughout. And that's why I say it's mostly sort of a fictionalized thing. There's almost no on-the-record sources. And on-the-record sources are all pointing in one direction. And this is the point. This is the big point of the book. This is why Tapper wrote it. This is why all these sources were feeding him stuff to write it, is that they have a agenda, and that agenda is to point the blame and scapegoat what is known as the Politburo, which is Joe Biden's inner circle. These are people who, if you've read my work, they're familiar to you. It is Mike Donnellan, who is one of the top guys in the Biden orbit, Ron Klain, who's top guy in the Biden orbit. There's one guy named Bruce Reed, who I was not familiar with, but also not mentioned much in the book, but he was listed as one of the bad guys. Jill Biden, of course, and Steve Ricchetti, who it was often referred to as the Ricchetti administration, as I wrote about in Breaking Biden, because of his influence over it, and kind of pointing the finger at these guys and saying they were the ones who blew the election. Also, a character named Anthony Bernal, who is Jill Biden's chief of staff, and that's basically it. It was all those people's fault and no one else, plus Joe Biden himself. That's it. The Biden family and those 5 or 6 names, none of which are relevant right now, and many of which will never be relevant again. And that is really what's going on. It looks as though this was sour grapes and people were feeding Tapper. We're blaming it on Donnellan. We're blaming it on Donnellan. We're blaming it on Ricchetti. We're blaming it on Anthony Bernal. That's what we're going to do. And we're going to blame it on Joe Biden himself. All these people who might never work again in Democrat politics, or at least at a national level, and they're just flaming those guys, and everyone else comes out looking good. Clearly, this is an agenda from reporters who are looking to maintain access for the rest of their careers by saving all of the people who will continue to be relevant. Kamala Harris comes out looking good. She only took the nomination out of duty. And she gets totally excused for her terrible tenure as vice president. Jake Tapper says that she quote unquote, had some purchase on the border. She was the border czar. She was responsible for the open border more than any other person aside from Joe Biden himself. But, she gets a slap on the wrist. She gets a pass. Chuck Schumer comes off as looking good. He's one of the few named sources who comes after who else? Mike Donnellan. That's the whole point of this book. It is the powerful people who are still relevant within Democrat parties covering their own asses, saving face by blaming these handful of Biden insiders. And this is just clearly politicized, and it is driven by agenda and looking towards the future of how to frame up this catastrophe that was the Biden campaign, and only have a few people who will probably be irrelevant anyway get the brunt of the blame. That's the whole point, and that's what the book was all about. I've just summed it up for you. You don't really need to know a lot else. It confirmed a lot of stuff that I've either reported or suspected. The first one, clearly, Joe Biden is old. We learned that a lot. So he's apparently very old. And that was new to some people, I guess, that he was the oldest guy ever to be old. And he's really old. Pages and pages and pages of anecdotes about Biden not being on the top of his game. All stuff that was totally old news for conservative media. Apparently, Jill Biden is bad. Was that news to you, that she's really ambitious and was trying to prop up Joe Biden at all costs and even at the expense of the country? Okay, that was apparently a revelation. People knew as far back as 2020 that Joe Biden only won that race because of the coronavirus and kind of lucked into it, that his abasement strategy was the only way he was going to beat Trump. Is that news to any of you? Well, that's a big part of the book. Cabinet meetings could be scripted. Interviews with the press could be scripted. He and Obama didn't get along. Joe Biden didn't want an independent Justice Department, and he was trying to control some of the machinations within the Justice Department. And the Democrats probably would have benefited if heading into the convention after Biden was replaced, they had a primary. All that takes up a lot of space in the book, and all that is just total old news. Here's a couple of things that I learned. And this was not a long list. I tried to, again, you guys know me, if you're listening to the show, I try to be fair. Steve Ricchetti, who is one of the top guys in Biden's orbit, gets a lot of pages and time in Tapper's book and my book, Breaking Biden, which came out 2 years ago. He came up with the slogan, the battle for the soul of the nation, or the soul of the nation campaign slogan for Biden. I thought that was a pretty good slogan. It really elevated the stakes, and I think it worked for him, his perception that he was empathetic to, and he could feel people's pain, which was one of Biden's strengths because he'd been through so much personal tragedy. And it also played to Biden's maturity level, which was, of course, something he was going to have to steer into to win. So that was interesting. I did not know it was Ricchetti who came up with that. And apparently the polls for Joe Biden were even worse than the public polls that we were able to see. So any of us who were paying attention thought that Trump was winning, and maybe winning by a lot, but it could have been within the margin of error. It sounded like the polls were even worse for Joe Biden. And that's really all the new stuff. There was really not much new. Again, not a terrible read, which is why the marketing makes sense. But he tries to make it as though this cover-up is some sort of a big scandal. I guess it's Tapper and Alex Thompson. But it just feels like this Thompson guy is just getting dragged along for the ride because he was a decent reporter on Biden, and he probably benefited from the payday and the exposure that Tapper could give him. But this feels like a Tapper joint. It's nothing new in it, a lot of hype, fairly well written. That's about it. They tried to make it seem like the cover-up was this major phenomenon, but it really just turns out that the cover-up was carried out by people who Joe Biden was their meal ticket. He was their key to fame, fortune, success, and a future. And Biden losing in embarrassing fashion was going to be the end of their power. And that's all pretty fundamental. It's all pretty fundamental stuff. So Tapper doesn't draw a lot of major conclusions other than Biden's bad. He recommends the president give up all their health info ahead of time. This is not going to happen. It's just not legal. We have HIPAA laws. It's a violation to demand that people expose their medical history to the public. And I don't like this because I don't like that you need a public colonoscopy now literally in order to be in public life, because we know how the establishment media, the corporate media operates. Anything that they can find negative, that will be the top headline. So a Republican who's otherwise in perfect health, if they have to release every last detail, they will find one little thing that's imperfect, and we've all got it, and they will use that. That will be the focal point, and it's just going to spook normal people off from running for public office. And I don't want that. I don't think we benefit from that. We have not benefited from the demand that people release their tax returns, and we are not going to benefit from people having to release their health information. It was patently obvious Joe Biden was not well, and the Democrats, the establishment media all went along with it because they thought he had the best chance of beating Trump. That's the bottom line, clear as day. You know that pain, stiffness, and declining mobility aren't just part of getting older, right? If you took that bone and joint health risk assessment that I've been talking about for the last few weeks and realized it's time for action, here's the solution that you've been waiting for. The Juvent Micro Impact Platform, which uses patented technology to send gentle, targeted signals to your bones and joints. It's safe, non-invasive, and proven to support stronger bones, healthier joints, and better movement without drugs or surgery. Don't settle on temporary fixes. Try Juvent for 6 weeks, and if you don't feel the difference, get your money back. Plus, for a limited time, you save $300 with the code MARLOW at checkout. Go to juvent.com/Marlow. That's JUVENT.com/Marlow. You deserve a future with less pain and more freedom. Make it happen today. I have to say, I do find this stuff fun. You guys can tell. I wouldn't be in this job if I didn't. But it was a little bit frustrating when I will take the Breaking Biden challenge. If you read this book, read chapter 2 of Breaking Biden, where I go through all of what we know about Joe Biden's health and all of the lies that we were told about his aneurysms, about his plastic surgery, about his hair plugs, about his sleep apnea, about his stiff gait, all about his cognitive tests that he never took, but maybe he took them. Okay, he didn't take them. Why would he take them? Go through all that, all the mental lapses that he took with the calling black children roaches and lying about everything and saying his sister is the love of his life. Go through all that stuff that I reported years ago. Not all of it was entirely fresh. Some of it was fresh, I have to admit, but not all of it was fresh. Some of it was just me curating stuff that was available and underreported by the establishment media. I guarantee you, you will enjoy it more and you will learn more than what you do from Jay Capper's book, which is #1 book because of all the hype. So it would have been nice if people had paid attention at the time, and they did. I got the New York Times list, which is great. So I'm grateful for everything I have. But there is a small degree of frustration that my book is. I think it's a better book. It's just better. And if you're on the fence about reading it, go pick up Breaking Biden. I would be very unlikely if I make more money off of it. It's only out of pride that I believe in what I did on that book, and I think there's a lot of useful information in it if we are going to do this thing where we're going to relitigate the Biden presidency. So there you go. Joe Biden finally rolled himself out there long enough to make a statement on how he's doing, responding to some of this. Let's check some of this out.
Good.
Well, the prognosis is good. We're working on everything. It's moving along. So I feel good.
Have you decided on your treatment options?
Yeah, we have. And they're underway, and all the folks are very optimistic.
And so you've started treatment?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Would you be willing to share what exactly that entails?
Well, it's all a matter of taking a pill, one particular pill, and for the next 6 weeks and then another one. And the expectation is we're going to be able to beat this. It's not in any organ. It's my bones are strong. I hadn't penetrated, so I'm feeling good.
So this reminds me of even after the disastrous debate, and I disagreed with Mrs. Dr. Marlow on this, but she was looking over my shoulder. She wasn't as focused as closely as I was. But Biden's debate against Trump, which was the beginning of the end of his political career, she said he just looks like normal Biden. And that's the whole thing, is that people who are not fed lies after lies from the establishment media, they're accustomed to him acting like this and looking like this. This is not news. This is kind of what he's like. It's just Joe. This is Joe. And I think that's really important, that a lot of people's perception of him, I think even amongst the Democrat establishment, and this is what Sam Harris said that I played earlier in the week, he gave it away, is that, yeah, they knew he wasn't a great guy and they knew he was old, but they thought maybe he had a chance to beat Trump. And clearly Kamala Harris didn't. She's a big dummy. So and everyone knew she was not capable. And she wasn't even really super inner circle, according to Tapper, which I don't know if that's true. And it doesn't speak highly of her if she wasn't. If she was the vice president and wasn't in there every day, that's kind of embarrassing. So this is Biden. He's talking about his cancer treatment. All of this does add up. He's lied about his health before. But again, the oncologists in my life that I talked to, they were trying to figure out if this thing had spread to his organs. And if it hadn't, then there's a pretty good prognosis for him. He could live 5 years and die of something else. And that's probably the most likely scenario if it doesn't get into his organs, because there's a lot of good treatment for this stuff these days. And in the bones, not good, not great for quality of life, but it's not necessarily a death sentence. And thus, I'm trying to give you what I think is the best information possible, not leaning into the hype machine. He's covered up so much about his health. I've not seen direct evidence he covered up the cancer. So that's it. That's where we're at. Let's keep going.
Good.
Sir, I feel like everybody expects. Sorry.
I've done it all because I'm loyal. I do it every damn year from the very beginning. I never forget where I came from. That's why.
I feel like everybody.
He went in real nice for a nuzzle with that girl. And he got really close. I think he wanted to give her a little kiss. Misty's freaking out about that. If you guys are missing on the streams, some of you are watching. I'm seeing the YouTube numbers huge for yesterday's show, which I really appreciate. So we do a visual show here, guys. So we're trying to make a visual for you. Yeah, he goes in there and goes for a little nippy. It looks like he backs off at the end. But again, beginning of chapter 2, Breaking Biden, I go through all of these instances, one after the next, where he's sniffing kids and he's cuddling kids and he kisses a 13-year-old and he's giving massages to Defense Secretary Ash Carter's wife, all while the cameras are rolling. I mean, we knew this about the guy. That's who he is. That's how he's always been. That's the Joe Biden we've always known. So anyone who's acting like this is news there's something else going on, and I think I know what it is. I figured it out. It's Tapper and Thompson are trying to protect themselves and the Democrat establishment so that they have optimal access should the Democrats assume power again. That's it. Let's play some more. Let's see if he tries to kiss someone else.
You know what to expect with you today, and then you get here and you're speaking powerfully, you look good, you're confident. What do you say to all those people? Don't count you out.
Well, I say lots of luck in their senior year.
You say lots of luck in your senior year? That's pretty funny. Like, well, what is this, the context of that? He says this stuff, and you can't tell if it's some sort of old-timey colloquialism that from the 19th century when he was born, or whether or not he's just being nuts. But he's like this all the time.
What has this been like for your family? Obviously, this is also an emotional time. This is the 10-year anniversary of your son, Bo's passing. You received this diagnosis just 2 weeks before that. Well,
we're all optimistic about the diagnosis. Matter of fact, one of the leading surgeons in the world is working with me. And he had diagnosed with the same exact thing 32 years ago. He's alive and well and doing very well. So we're optimistic.
All right. So that's good. So we know Biden is he's a very stable genius, let's just say. So he's coming out swinging. I like it. He's got good days and bad. That's the point. Good days and bad. He's too old. He's always a good days and bad. He's never been a good president. He's always been a bad guy. He's always enabled his corrupt family. That's all the stuff that matters most. And the Democrats really bet on the wrong horse. But it's not like anyone else was going to beat Trump anyway. It was a divine intervention for Trump to win that election. It was very clear. All right, so let's catch up with Trump. Let's see how he's doing. Elon Musk has ended his time in the Trump administration and Doge. This is happening in real time as we're recording. I know the show comes out a little bit later, but Misty, you pulled some stuff for me. Which one did you want? Why don't you play it for me, Misty? Play one you like.
Many of the Doge people, Elon, are staying behind too, so they're not leaving. And Elon's really not leaving. He's going to be back and forth, I think. I have a feeling. It's his baby, and I think he's going to be doing a lot of things. But Elon's service to America has been without comparison in modern history. He's already running one of the most innovative car companies in the world. You look at his factories and compare them with some of the old factories we have, and it's a big difference. And the most successful space company, and I guess in history you would have to say the largest free speech platform on the internet, etc. Yet Elon
for a second.
Willingly, with all of the
I want to
success,
reflect on this, Misty, if you could pause for a second. First of all, everything Trump is saying is true. And if you guys have been with me for a while, you know I've had a lot more negative to say about Musk than positive, though I've been robustly 100% pro-Doge every step of the way. I think he has made a big sacrifice, and I do buy that his conversion's real. I think I pinpointed where it comes from. I think that he began to understand that the woke mind virus, as he puts it, when one of his children transitioned. And I think that he said that child is dead now. And I think that that's very profound. He clearly cares about having a lot of children. I don't know if he cares about parenting them per se, but he cares about having them at least. And that matters quite a bit. And he does seem to be a lifelong learner, someone who always wants to learn stuff. And I do think he's mostly on our side. I've not seen any evidence that he's against China, which will be interesting to track how he works with his companies within the context of how he made so much money from China over the years. He's done so many complementary things. But I think his sacrifice has been profound. I think he risked a lot of reputational damage, a lot of damage to his companies. I think it cost him a lot of money to do this effort. And I think a lot of what he's doing is, it really is, it's commendable, and I think that a lot of the spirit of it needs to live on even after he leaves. Let's continue.
And attacks because he does love our country. I know that very much. He loves our country. He comes from another country, a country that's going through trials and tribulations, I would say. But he's all about the USA, and Americans owe him a great debt of gratitude. So I just want to thank Elon for his time as a special government employee. Can you imagine? They called him an employee, but it's a special government employee, and for coming and helping us. And he really has changed the mindset of a lot of people. A lot of people thought, maybe we'll cut 1% or 2% or 3%. Then they said, well, we can cut a lot more than that, and we're going to do it very surgically. We're going to continue on the march. We're making America great again. When I was in Saudi Arabia, we were in, as you know, 3 really great countries, predominantly the 3. Qatar was great, UAE was great, Saudi Arabia, incredible. Such an incredible experience to be in those 3 countries.
Okay, good stuff. And let's see, we got some more Musk here. Let me play this one.
The president mentioned that you had to deal with all the slings and arrows during your time at Doge. There's this.
Well, some of the people, some of the media organizations in this room are the slingers.
Well, so there is a New York Times report today that accuses you of blurring the line between.
Is the New York Times, is that the same publication that got a Pulitzer Prize for false reporting on the Russiagate? Is it the same organization?
I got to check my Pulitzer.
I think it is.
It is.
I think the judge just ruled against the New York Times for their lies about the Russiagate hoax, and that they might have to give back that Pulitzer Prize. That New York Times. Let's move on.
Okay, then next question.
Trump.
I got one more. President Trump.
It's charismatic. It's charismatic. He is fun. So anyway, the spirit of Doge got to live on. We thought Musk would leave around now, but Doge will continue for another year. So hopefully that spirit goes on. And it's incumbent upon us all to take the spirit of cutting and extend it. More good news. Core inflation falls to the lowest rate in 4 years. It's a big thing for Trump. It's heading down towards the target is 2% for the Fed. Personal income climbed at a rapid rate also. So personal consumption price climbed 0.1% in April, second month in a row, in which consumers got relief from inflation. John Carney writes for us at Breitbart News, that's plagued the economy throughout the Biden administration. In March, the index showed prices were flat. Compared with a year ago, prices are up just 2.1%. So that's just 1/10 above the 2% inflation target that the Fed has set. In March, prices were up 2.3%. So we keep heading down towards that 2% target. Look, if you read the Tapper book, he keeps insisting over and over again. He uses sources to do it, but he keeps insisting the Biden presidency was successful. I just don't know how you look at the Afghanistan withdrawal, the open border, and the inflation and say it was successful. I just don't. And that is really what the Democrats are trying to do. They're trying to soothe themselves. And Trump comes in and immediately inflation starts going down. Mega win for Trump. Great stuff. One thing to track with Musk's departure is how Trump talks about China. Trump is getting really tough on China. He's saying that China totally violated its agreement with America in a long Truth Social post. I would go through it. We got a report on it at Breitbart for those of you who want more details. But the point is that there wasn't really a main takeaway for me reading his post, what he wants from China. He's just frustrated with China. And my initial hot take was, I think this actually has to do with the Ukraine-Russia war. So there's been a lot of reports we've had this week about how China is propping up Russia in that war. And Russia has gone from, it seems like, moving towards the direction where Trump could broker a peace between Ukraine and Russia. And then China steps in, and China is now propping up Russia to keep fighting. They always have a close relationship. That's part of what Trump wants to do, is pull Russia away from China. I think China sees that. And I think that, China reads a lot of Breitbart. I know this because I see our content covered in Chinese state media all the time. So they're not dumb people over there. They know who understands Trump the best. They're following us. They're following what's going on. And they don't want Trump to get that W. China does not want Trump to broker peace between Russia and Ukraine. It'd be a monster win for Trump. It would create calm throughout the world. It could potentially pull Russia away from China towards the U.S. China doesn't want that at all. And so they're meddling here. And I think Trump understands it. But what's noteworthy is the shift in focus, because China demands respect, and they're tougher to deal with. They're tough to deal with anyway, but they're tougher to deal with if they feel disrespected. And so Trump has to be very careful when he calls them out directly. It's always a massive headache. And this has happened to Joe Biden. Whenever you call out China directly, it creates a headache for the administration. So I think Trump is sort of surreptitiously taking shots at China throughout the beginning of his administration. And now he's taking direct shots at him, which I'm very curious about that. And my connecting the dots was that this has to do with Ukraine and Russia. And I ran this by Frances Martel, our world editor at Breitbart News, and she said that's exactly my take as well. So Moscow's now said there'll be no Putin and Zelensky Trump meeting. and has downplayed talks of a ceasefire. It's all are the deal. We don't know exactly, but what's the future might hold. But that's the initial thought there, and not positive, because I was hoping that not only would that war come to an end, which would be great, but it's nice to get Trump that peace W, because Trump's bona fides as the peace man, the man who makes peace around the world, will be very, very welcome. All right, big, beautiful bill updates. Senate's been out, so they've been kind of sporadic this week. Senator Ron Johnson has said that enough senators could stop Trump's big, beautiful bill. So there's a lot of the deal going on in the Senate and the House. I've watched you guys through this logic before. This thing is heading towards a victory. If the Republicans do not pass this, then they will be portrayed as incompetent. Tax hikes will occur across the board. So American people will be paying more. It will shut down Trump's agenda. It will stifle the economy, and it will almost guarantee a big defeat in the 2026 midterm elections, because it is a very unfavorable map for Republicans. So the question is, are senators like this, Congress people like this, are they being crazy, or are they doing the deal? Is Ron Johnson doing this? And he did this on CNN, the State of the Union show on CNN this week. He said if he thinks people are going to vote against it, does that mean he is stealthily and skillfully negotiating more cuts? Because he's a big cut guy. He's a conservative guy. He wants more cuts. I'm with him. I like more cuts. Is he just trying to extract more cuts, more of his agenda, or is this a sort of thing where they're going to play with fire here, where maybe we don't get a coalition together to get this passed? That's a major question, and that's going to be the focus a lot next week, and I'll try to bring in some Senate guests to talk to you about it. But that's the thing, is that everyone knows that they have bargaining chips, because basically every Republican vote counts here because of the narrow majorities in the House and the Senate, and they know that Republicans need this victory, and no Democrats are going to help them. So this is probably getting to a win. So if you ask for something, you might get it. So that's probably what's going to happen. But we got to keep an eye on it, and as this debate goes on. Some positive Supreme Court news, believe it or not. Supreme Court rules that Trump can end Biden's mass migration pipeline. This is pending appeal, but this John Binder's written this up for us at Breitbart, but Trump revoked the legal status of 530,000 migrants from Cuba, Haiti, Nicaragua, and Venezuela who were allowed in the U.S. under a Biden-era parole pipeline known as the CHNV. We report on this quite a bit at Breitbart. This has been a huge topic of conversation with us at Breitbart, that we've identified that the parole pipeline is really the most dangerous thing that's going, even more than the open border itself, that we are, it's essentially catch and release on steroids. People come in and they claim they have some legitimate right to be here, and they get paroled in the country, they get absorbed in the country, and the backlog is potentially years long for their cases to be heard. That is a problem. We've got to shut that down, and we got to deport people before they get their quote unquote due process. The concept of due process for illegal immigrants, that is gone. That is an impossibility. That is intolerable right now. We cannot tolerate it. We must absolutely have people who are coming here deported, and then if they want to apply from some other place to get in here legit, fine. But they need to get back to their country of origin for the time being. And if they think they have some right to be here, you make that claim from there. You don't make it from here. And that is essential. Really sad story. A teen illegal immigrant who killed a woman in Colorado got a slap on the wrist. So she got probation. And then she was just arrested by ICE. So this is a big deal. Fox has a report on this. We have our version of this at Breitbart. I'm linking to Fox version. A legal immigrant teenager who was spared jail time after he was convicted of killing a Colorado woman in a high-speed crash has been arrested along with his family by immigration authorities. So this is one of these things where none of this is necessary. 24-year-old Caitlin Weaver struck and killed in July 2024 by an illegal immigrant driver. It should never happen. We should not lose one family member ever to illegal migrant crime. It should never happen. It is totally preventable. And it is preventable if we have zero tolerance towards illegal immigration. It is illegal immigration. We have the zero tolerance policy towards it. It is just completely unacceptable for this to continue. All right, a couple of culturally things I wanted to bring to your attention. And Major League Baseball is entering the world of women's sports with the launch of a pro softball league. And I do want people's takes on this at aloha@alexmarlow.com. The WNBA has been a total disaster. It's very woke. It loses money. Their stars are not likable. It is a DEI initiative that's been proven. I wonder though if a professional women's softball could have potential. And I've got two data points why it might work. First of all, it's a different sport, and it's smaller, it's on a smaller scale, and moves faster. And the nature of the underhand pitching just makes it just so that there are different skills, different mechanics that are involved. It speeds up the game. So, and people like a fast game. So, and also the ladies are spirited, which is kind of fun. But here's my main data point. If you've ever watched a college women's softball game, they're really fun. I was watching highlights of it just this morning before I even saw this news, but it was go down a rabbit hole because I guess they're in their playoffs now for women's college. And I was watching the women hit home runs and walk-off home runs. There were 2 walk-off home runs yesterday, and they're fun. It's fun. It's a fun game. I've never watched a WNBA highlight and thought this is amazing. Even Caitlin Clark, I know she puts up numbers, but it's like I never watched a Caitlin Clark highlight and thought, wow, she's great. It's like it's a different sport, and it is fun to watch when they put the college sports on ESPN 8 or whatever it is at night. If you're flipping through it, you might stop and watch. So could it work? I guess I'm betting no, but I'm not rooting as hard against it as I do the WNBA, which is just so fun to watch that fail. But I'll tell you the main softball news that I've been seeing all day is a man is single-handedly carrying a high school in Minnesota to the Class 4A softball championship. This is one where I was thinking about this during the Musk clip. The Trump mentioned how Twitter is the free speech platform, and it's imperfect, or X, the everything app, as it's known. But I'll tell you, I was looking for this story on Google, and mostly as a exercise experiment. Could I find this story that a man is dominating women's high school softball in Minnesota? And I could not find it in Google. And I did a couple variations of search, and I went over to X, the everything app, and right away I get a tweet from Riley Gaines, from the swimmer who stood up to all the trans, American hero Riley Gaines, and she's got it right there at the top, fighting back on it, and it's just great. It's just terrific how that is, and good for Musk there. It's imperfect, but so much better than anything else. And just think about how powerful Google is, and they hide this sort of stuff from you. It's either the results. If I want to take more time on, I could read you the results that they spat out at me when I'm looking for this story. It had nothing to do with anything I would read. Nothing French, nothing fresh or French. But yeah, so a Class 4A softball championship, a man has pitched 14 consecutive shutout innings in back-to-back games. I think they're 7-inning games. So no one scored off this dude, the quote-unquote Marissa Rothenberger, who just looks like a dude, super tall and just blowing heaters past young girls. And I really shouldn't even laugh. I am, I guess 11, 12 years away from my first daughter entering high school, and we're a baseball family, so I maybe she'll want to play. I mean, she's tall, she got a good arm, and if she's dudes blowing fastballs by her and ruining her experience because no one has the guts to stand up to these people and say, you can't do this, you can't ruin all high school sports for girls. I just don't want to live in that America. It's just such a disgrace, and it's got to stop. Yet it continues. I've got some clips of it. I got some here. Check it out. If you're watching the screens, if not, you're going to miss it. But check this.
Rothenberger was in the circle for Champlin Park as well in the second. She gets one of her 7 strikeouts of the game to keep the score at 2-0. Maple Grove locked down defensively after that first inning. Ruby Goette, nice diving catch at second. It was still 2-0 in the 5th. Crimson with a runner in scoring position, but Rothenberger gets Lexi Howe to ground out. No runs scored by either team after the Rebels scored in the first. Last chance for the Crimson in the 7th. Ava.
I want a heater clip. Do we have one in this one?
And the pitch. Berger back in the 5th. Swing and a miss here first. 0-2 pitch. Struck.
And of course, look, there's only two ways to go. We've got to shut this down, or we've got to lean into it and just put all guys out in the field, have the guys win the championship 30-0. just total dominance, win every game by 20, slaughter rule, and then it'll end. Those are the only two ways. We either got to take a stand now. You cannot do a half measure here. We are either taking a stand or we're just admitting we're cool with it. We're fine with the trans, with the guys playing the women's sports, and let the guys dominate. Just field a team of guys and let them dominate. Those are the only two ways to shut it down. All right, so it's important stuff. One other culturally thing, Michelle Obama keeps doing podcasts, and I was kind of blown away at what she's allowing herself to say. I don't know why she's doing this, other than that maybe she's just feeling bored. But we get a couple of Michelle O clips. This is the first. I caught this a couple days ago, and I wanted to play this for you. I'll play this one, and then there's an even better one to follow. But check this out.
There was a line of people waiting to shake hands with our respective husbands. Okay. You know, people like reaching over our heads and spilling water on us, trying to get to these two, you know, illustrious men, you know, and she had the same look on her face as I did. Like, here we go, you know? And I looked over at this beautiful woman. Did we even have a conversation?
Not until later in that afternoon. And that
so you hadn't met?
We hadn't met.
You just saw each other.
But I just saw the look on her face, which expressed the sentiments that I felt, which was
pissed off.
So she's losing weight. So I give her credit for that. So sometimes when you're on camera all the time, you gotta lose some weight. So I give her credit there. But it's just all grievances, right? I mean, this is all the whole point of what she does is to find things to complain about, even though she's lived more of a charmed life, going to Harvard, being first lady, being rich. Everyone loved her for a time. And just always just constantly complaining about this country. But this is the clip I really want to share. Check this out. This is mind-blowing stuff.
Because so many men have no idea about what women go through, right? We haven't been researched. We haven't been considered. And it affects the way a lot of male lawmakers, a lot of male politicians, a lot of male religious leaders think about the issue of choice as if it's just about the fetus, the baby, but women's reproductive health is about our life. It's about this whole complicated reproductive system that
it gets you better from here, but just we do think about the fetus, which is we refer to it as the baby, and we know that since we legalized abortion in the country, that all of a sudden people started terminating human lives at an unprecedented rate that we've never seen in the history of the world until we normalized and legalized it in our country. And then all of a sudden, an entire industry popped up where people were championing the destruction of human life for no good reason and acting as though the mother, who I have sympathy for mothers who have unwanted pregnancies, of course, any normal human being would. But do you have sympathy for the baby at all? Does the baby count here? Who speaks up on behalf of the baby that is within the womb? So she's explaining this as if this is not a completely heinous, evil position, but it is. But it gets better.
That does the least of what it does is produce life. It's a very
okay. This is the best part.
It's about this whole complicated reproductive system that does the least of what it does is produce life.
The least of what a woman's body does in their reproductive system is produce life. It is. I don't know how you could say this and no one caught her and no one said that it's not a live show, right? I mean, Missy, can we confirm this is a live show? She had no obligation to say this. The least of what a woman does is reproduce. You know what's noteworthy about this is there's lots of rumors online that she did not have her own children, that she had surrogates, that there's no pictures of her pregnant. And I've never really gone down that rabbit hole, but now I'm compelled to do so because she says so matter of fact that it is women are having a baby is the least a woman does with her reproduction. No, it is by far the most any human does with anything is that the woman makes life. That is the most important thing any human does, the function of the human body, that is the most important thing that of it all. And she dismisses it. This is the exact message that I think has left a lot of people growing up in an environment where they're pursuing becoming a girl boss and not pursuing a family, and they're not going to get the fulfilling experience of having a family. It's such a toxic message. And it's anti-science, it's anti-evolution. It's very strange.
Very important thing that it does. But you only produce life if the machine that's producing it, if you want to, whittle us down to a machine, if the machine is functioning in a healthy, streamlined kind of way. Mm-hmm. But there's no discussion or apparent connection between the two.
Michelle, are you a man? I'm only joking. I'm not. Those are the rumors. Like, I've never bought into them before, but it's very strange to see someone. And for the record, I don't think Michelle Obama's a man, but so you're free to email me and convince me otherwise. But there's all these rumors that she'd never own kids. Maybe she's a dude. I don't think she's a dude, but it's like, why would you go out of your way to belittle the experience of giving life? It's just very strange person. And I keep bringing her out there because the Democrats are all sad sacks. You guys saw the Tim Miller clip I played yesterday with Buttigieg. She looks so stressed out. They're all stressed out. They're all sad. They're doing the circular firing squad stuff with Jake Tapper. They have nowhere to go. AOC is reheating her talking points from 2018. This is glorious. This is our big moment. And this is why I've been saying this before, and I'll say it again. Their only option for 2028 is a Biden ticket. They got to bring back Joe and Hunter. That's their ticket. Hunter's most charismatic, he's the most creative, the most intelligent, the most high-functioning Democrat there is, the only cool one. I got Misty pulled an extra Biden clip for us, and we'll bring it home with this one. Check this out.
And there's also been a lot of discussion recently about your mental and physical capabilities while you were in office.
You can see that. I'm mentally incompetent, and I can't walk, and I could beat the hell out of both of them.
He's just always harboring this. He always wants to take someone behind the shed and beat him up. He's talked about beating up Trump so many times. He wants to go back behind the bar and beat him up. Remember he challenged an 80-year-old guy to a push-up contest one time? And remember that time that he said to that guy, "Here's the deal, fat." And he called the guy fat because he was a fat guy, asked him a question about something he didn't want to talk about. Here's the deal, fat. And then I think it was Simone Sanders was working for him at the time. Whoever was his spokesperson came out and said that here's the deal, facts. And he obviously called the fat guy fat, and then they spun and no, he said facts. Like, no, he didn't. Okay, we'll get that for next time. This is fun. Look, a lot of fun stuff today on the Marlow Show. Great week on the show. Thanks to all of you for telling 10,000 friends and family members, but all the hard work we're putting in here. Go over to Breitbart.com. My Fight Club interviews with John Nolte today, so extra weekend content for you is a blast. I get his take on the original Sin news saga, and then he tells a pretty unbelievable story about his nursing home for his mother, which is a little cherry on top of a nice episode. And that's it. Have a great weekend, and we'll talk to you on Monday. Thanks, Misty. Thanks to all of you in the audience.